The Cincinnati Bengals will play their starters against the Eagles as they try to start faster in 2025. Let's break down what we're looking for from the Bengals in their preseason debut.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Jake Liscow, he's James Rapien, and we've been covering the Cincinnati Bengals here on Locked On Bengals since 2016. If you're new to the show, just hit that subscribe button to make sure you don't miss an episode. It'll go to your feed, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening anywhere you get your podcasts, and you can join all the everydayers out there. Shout out to you if you're already an everydayer here on the Locked On Bengals podcast, and all of you who make us your first listen. James, time to gear up for some football. The Bengals playing their starters against Philadelphia Eagles, as we've discussed ad nauseum, but perhaps there's some people tuning in for the first time to get a preview before the Bengals take the field for the first time in 2025. It'll be first impression time for many rookies, for many fans who haven't been following every day, for all of the drama around Shemar Stewart. It'll be his opportunity for him and the rest of this rookie class to make their first impressions. And more than that, the Bengals will be trying to kick off the rust, begin their warm-up for the regular season. So they're not warming up through weeks 1 and 2 this year. But with all that said, that's a preamble for the game. What's your number one thing that you're hoping the Bengals get out of their first preseason game?
Well, it's got to be Joe Burrow, and he gets out of it what he needs to get out of it, whatever that is. Seeing the defense, reading the defense, the possibility. I don't want him to get hit, but the possibility of him being hit lights that fire that he needs to be Joe Burrow week 1. Like that's all this is about for me, is how do you make sure that the Joe Burrow we saw week 3 against the Commanders, when that offense was going up and down the field last year, that guy shows up week 1 in Cleveland this year. And however you get there, that's got to be their goal. And that's why he's playing. That's why the starters are playing. They need to start fast. We know that. And so, yeah, it is Joe Burrow, because I don't think the defense is going to be perfect. I don't think the offensive line is going to be perfect. All of these things that we've talked about for months and months and months, they're not going to be perfect week 1, no matter what happens. It's just unrealistic to think so. But can Joe Burrow be an all-pro the moment he steps on the field in Cleveland? I think so. And if this can help him get there, that would be great, because we've seen him play well early in the season, but the week 1 and week 2 woes, and last year, week 3 woes that the team had from a win-loss perspective, that has to go by the wayside. And what's the number one key, the number one way to do that? Joe Burrow starting out hot, which he's done all training camp. And I'm interested in that as well. He's been so consistent throughout training camp to this point. Does he go out there, and is he pretty darn consistent, and is the ball where he wants it to be, and does he play well? I kind of expect him to, but I'm excited to see if he can do that on the road in Philly.
I think that is the exciting part, right? Because we have seen him be every bit of Joe Burrow, midseason form Joe Burrow throughout training camp. Like, the guy's been great. Zach Taylor just told Kay Adams he's gotten better this year. He didn't know how that was possible, but I mentioned to you numerous times from clips and when I was down in Cincinnati with you that he looked like he was moving better, that the accuracy looked better. Like, if anything could have somehow gotten better, the perfectly placed footballs that Joe Burrow has thrown throughout this training camp and the quick reads. Al Golden talking about the guy always having answers. Desmond Ridder talking about him being the fastest processor, Joe Burrow being the fastest processor Desmond Ridder has ever watched play football. These are the things that we knew about Joe Burrow, but the fact that he's doing it now, not talking about, the ball's not coming out as consistently as I want it to from my hand because I'm trying to figure out how to throw the ball with my wrist, or I got a calf and I'm negotiating a contract and I can't move, or my appendix burst and I had to go to the hospital. None of that in the background to this point for this first preseason game. So instead you get a Joe Burrow who has been able to do all the work that he wants to do in the preseason. Looks like he's firing on all cylinders. And now we get to see how that translates to a game where you have live pass rushers trying to take him to the ground. And it won't be the stars for Philly. We don't think. I don't think Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, I don't think those guys are playing. Philly hasn't said either way. But Philly, renowned for their depth, surely we will see some players for Philadelphia that will be on that roster. And that defense was a huge problem last year. So they could throw some challenges at Joe. It won't be the first team defense for Philly, but despite that, it will be live football, closer to approximating live in-game, in-season timing. And Joe's talked about how important it is for him to feel that timing, to really understand and internalize, okay, this is what I have to do this year with this group of players. This is when the ball has to come out. And so that is quite exciting to see how the performance we've seen so far in training camp translates to a game setting, even if it is preseason against mostly backups for the Eagles.
No doubt. It's getting Joe's supercomputer brain ready to go on all cylinders, literally a month after they play Philly. And so when you're watching or listening or however you're taking in the preseason game on Thursday night, regular season football is a month away. And that's a kind of a cool barometer that you can look at. And so, yeah, that's where it starts. We're going to dive into a bunch of other stuff. I'm really, me personally, I'm really excited to see a few different things that we can get into, but this has to begin and end with Joe. It does, because one, he's talked about how valuable preseason reps are for years now, not just this offseason, for years. And then I go back to what Zach Taylor said the day he fired Lou Anarumo and Frank Pollock, and they make all these other coaching changes. And he's like, we have to start faster. And that starts today. Well, a big step toward that is Thursday night in Philly. And that starts with the offense and Joe Burrow getting in sync, getting ready to go. So they are firing on all cylinders. When they play a team in Cleveland a month from now, that at least defensively has had their number and given them fits in the past.
And is starting Shedeur Sanders because they're out of healthy quarterbacks. And everyone's in a tizzy about it, man. Shedeur Sanders, that guy generates clicks, I'll tell you that. Let's continue the conversation here. We'll talk about some other important debuts for the Bengals, other things we're looking for in week one. James, you said you're really excited about a few things in particular,
Yes.
and you can tell us about those as we continue the conversation about preseason game number 1 coming up next.
Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, but preseason action is here. And whether it's NFL preseason, whether it's NFL futures, or whether you're looking at golf, Major League Baseball, it doesn't matter. FanDuel has you covered, and you're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling with FanDuel? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach this summer. And you can use FanDuel to track your favorite matchups. The app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions as well, new ways to bet. And whether it's placing a same-game parlay, watching a bet ride into the 9th inning, or looking at some NFL future bets, FanDuel is the place to go. If you're new to FanDuel, well, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Again, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Jake, the thing I'm most excited about, and outside of Joe and football's back and all of those things, I want to see 97. I want to see 97, and I don't care who's playing, who's not, against someone else that isn't the Bengals offensive front, and see how they use him, how he's deployed, where he's playing, where he's lining up, because I think he's going to get significant snaps. I think the Bengals want him to get, I'd go back to what Al Golden said earlier this week, into football shape. And I also think they really value his ability. And so how much does he play inside? Does he kick to that side? Does he go to that? Like, where does he line up? I think the Shemar Stewart, how he's deployed, how he's used, and then obviously what he does when he's out there and the impact he has, I'm really, really excited to see it. It's more so than any non-Joe Burrow topic. Obviously, Joe Burrow is the most important, but Shemar is number one on my list outside of that.
I think there are a lot of rookies that we're going to be excited to see, but Shemar Stewart tops the list. Shemar Stewart gets to make his first impression for, like I said, a lot of Bengals fans. A lot of Bengals fans maybe weren't aware of Shemar Stewart's holdout, and they're ready to tune in. It's the first game of the season, right? They're not paying any attention to since the draft, right? The non-everydayers out there. Shemar Stewart gets drafted. All right, let's see about this new pass rusher we got. Shemar Stewart, how's he going to do? Does he flash the way that he's flashed in practices? And more than flash, he's been pretty consistently disruptive in training camp practices, albeit working against the twos. And that's likely going to be his competition from the Philadelphia Eagles, whether it's Kendall Lamb at left tackle, whether it's potentially Cameron Williams at right tackle, Matt Pryor at right guard, Kenyon Green at left guard, or whatever configuration the Eagles roll out. There probably won't be Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson. As much as I would love to see Shemar Stewart be challenged by two of the best tackles in the game on that Philly offensive line, I do think that you should expect to see Shemar Stewart line up pretty much everywhere. And
yeah,
I think the other thing that's exciting about that, and it'll be the preseason, so I'm not sure how much of this we'll see, but we will see new formations from this Bengals defense that you're not used to seeing because Lou Anarumo has been the defensive coordinator for so long. You kind of got used to what Lou Anarumo liked to do. Lou had a deep bag of tricks, but you knew what he was going to do. We're going to get our first look at this Al Golden defense, and that includes what Shemar Stewart does. So obviously, I'm with you. What kind of disruption do we see from Shemar Stewart? Do we see him string some things together, show some of that hand usage development that you're seeing him work on? The raw athleticism, how does that play up in this game? And then, as we're talking about where he lines up, it'll be a lot of people's first exposure to the three defensive lineman looks that we've seen a lot of throughout training camp. I think we'll be seeing that against the Eagles, and that involves linebackers playing on the surface, linebackers essentially playing edge, and that immediately brings to mind, invokes the idea of Demetrius Knight, who's going to be playing early in this game, Barrett Carter, who's probably going to play a fair amount in this game, and the way those guys are used. So I agree with you on Shemar Stewart. Big first impression time for him. Would love to see him force his way into snaps against the number ones after this week by having a stellar performance here.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, getting our first look at this Al Golden defense and all of the new pieces there. That's going to be pretty interesting to start things off here against Tanner McKee and whoever else is playing quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles.
But just think of it this way. Like, I remember Joseph Osai's rookie year when he brings down Tom Brady and like people start to get excited. Like, what if last year Dax Hill, oddly enough, against Tampa Bay as well, balls out and forces his way? Like, I would love for Shemar to do that, where they're like, oh, like we thought that it was going to be Osai and Hendrickson and obviously Slayton and Hill on the inside, but Shemar has just been so versatile, so big. He's going to play a ton of snaps. He doesn't necessarily need to start necessarily, but I would love for him to force their hand, make them start him, show that he's that freak. And I think again, he's flashed really almost maybe outside of his first practice. At every practice we've seen him, he's done something. And so now does it come together? And if so, this kind of aligns with the Al Golden defense. He clearly valued that versatility.
Mm-hmm.
And they've talked about it multiple times. And so if he delivers and Shemar is who they think he is, well, then what does that do for the defense moving forward? And overall, yeah, I'm excited to see that, because if this defense is as good as they hope to be,
which is average.
Which I don't think that's what they hope.
Well, yeah. Well, we hope.
Big difference there, right? Expectations on the outside versus the inside. But even without Cam Taylor-Britt, even without Dax Hill, you should probably get to Tanner McKee a little bit. You should probably be able to make their life a little painful there on the Eagles side. So we'll see. But that part of it is exciting because the defense, how real is it? We're still going to have questions after Thursday night, even if they go out there and they're just awesome.
Yeah.
But it would be interesting to see. And it's our first time seeing them. And so, yeah, that whole package of things that Al Golden has really put together over the past 6-7 months is exciting. And hopefully we'll get to see some of it come together on Thursday.
I have really high expectations for Shemar Stewart in this game because my takeaways watching camp are that he's going to beat the crap out of any backup offensive lineman he gets to play because he's just that athletically gifted, that strong, that tenacious. And he should be playing against a roster full, an offensive line full of backups for the Philadelphia Eagles in this game. So I kind of expect Shemar to go out there and put on a show. We'll see if he does. We'll see how it translates to a real game setting. We'll see how he finishes because that was one of the issues, right? Was the tackling. And that's another thing. Tackling. That's a big word around Paycor Stadium, right? Going back to last year, going back to Jermaine Pratt. Going to be a big topic throughout this preseason as well. Our first chance to see these guys and their focus on tackling and how that translates to the field. If we're sitting here tomorrow night, James, talking about, man, they couldn't tackle against the Eagles backups when the starters were out, that's going to be a nightmare. I don't want to have that conversation. Let's see some clean tackling from this defense. But that was kind of an aside. I wanted to stay on the defensive line for a second because it's not just Shemar Stewart. It is also Joseph Osai. It is also Miles Murphy. It is also Chris Jenkins. Like, significant opportunity for those guys to show that they've taken steps. Especially Chris Jenkins, who's like
I want to
flashed a
see how
little bit in the
Slayton
last
fits
week.
with those guys too, you know?
Yeah, and if Slayton's like the pass rushing chops that he's shown, the little burst that he's shown, which is much more than I've expected to see, does that show up in preseason game number 1? Like, show us something here. Show us that you're not going to be the same relatively anemic pass rushing group outside of Trey Hendrickson. And I think we've seen some of that throughout training camp. We've seen Chris Jenkins potentially taking a step as a pass rusher. We've seen a lot of twisting and stunting. I don't know if he will in this game. That's one of those things that they might tame down a little bit, might not show too much of, although it's relatively common at this point in the NFL, so you might see some of it. But if these guys can collectively wreak havoc against backups, that's what they should be doing when it's the starters against the Eagles backups, assuming that's still the plan for the Eagles, because we don't know. You should see a lot of havoc from that group, from that front seven at the beginning of this game on Thursday.
Yep. And you're right. You're mentioning all these other guys, and there's no doubt I'm excited about them too. And it's part of it is we've seen them in games before.
But
and
for some of them, it's like big step time, the beginning of big step time. You know what I mean?
No doubt. And that's why it is exciting, right? Because are they making that step or are they not? Are these flashes in training camp really legitimate or are they not? And so that part is really exciting to me. I do think that the TJ Slayton factor, you're hoping gets the most out of Chris Jenkins. And Chris Jenkins should get a quarter's worth of snaps. Like I think a lot of these starters are going to play about a quarter. And just kind of reviewing what Taylor had to say again on Tuesday. All right. Well, let's see. And maybe Chris Jenkins plays a little longer than that because he isn't technically a starter with Hill and Slayton. But let's see how that unfolds. So yeah, there's a lot of excitement. The linebackers, you mentioned them earlier, but I think a lot of people are excited about the linebackers and how that unit is just going to operate.
Yeah.
I get the excitement, and hopefully this is the best linebacker top to bottom linebacker room they've had since the AFC Championship teams. I mean, that's goes without saying.
The depth seems much better. Yeah, I mean,
it does. We'll see.
I think the interesting thing there that I would tell people to look for is like watch for all the different combinations of linebackers you see, the different alignments you see from the linebackers that are part of the defensive surface, part of essentially the defensive line, and the different times you see Oren Burks 42 or Barrett Carter 49 on the field. And I'm also very curious to see where Mumajong Meta gets on the field. We have not seen much of him throughout training camp. Like, I haven't seen him doing much. So just a curiosity because he was an exciting player last year. Last thing on the defense, James, is going to be, for me, the alignment of the defensive backs. No Dax, no Cam Taylor-Britt, like you said. But is Josh Newton playing more inside, more outside? And what can we take away from that in a world where those guys aren't healthy? Limited takeaways, right? But DJ Turner, expect to see him a lot outside. DJ Ivy, probably going to play early in this game. Jalen Davis, probably going to play early in this game. Those have been the guys along with Josh Newton. So seeing where those guys are, when they're used, how they're used, that's my last topic on the defense before we shift gears here, James. We'll finish the show with the non-Burrow players and items we're watching in preseason game number 1 on the offense coming up next.
Today's show is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Look, NFL, it's here. The regular season is right around the corner, and that means it's fantasy football draft time. I have a bunch of drafts coming up, and of course, they're in Yahoo Fantasy. I'm playing Yahoo Fantasy. You should too, whether you're a first timer or a veteran making your millionth league. And it's awesome because Yahoo just dropped their guillotine leagues. And to celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, they're doing 28 big new features over the next 28 days. And I already love Yahoo Fantasy. I've literally used them for nearly 2 decades. But what's a guillotine league? It's a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. I've never done a guillotine league, so guess what I'm doing? I'm jumping into Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine, leaguing it up. If you're into the classics, you could still play head-to-head, of course, or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL.
Well, James, we talked about the defense before the last segment of a show, before a game. We've done it. Now we get to talk about the exciting things on offense that aren't Joe Burrow. And for me, it's Dylan Fairchild, it's Lucas Patrick, it's Amarius Mims, it's eventually going to be Jalen Rivers. I'm not worried about the big 3 wide receivers, right? But I am interested to see the new outlook, I guess you could say, for the offensive line. Lucas Patrick, I'm assuming, is going to start after Cody Ford missed that most recent practice. But like all of the exciting players that are going to play in this game for the Eagles are essentially on defense, as far as I can tell. And maybe an Eagles fan will be in the comments correcting me and telling me they're really excited to see, like, I don't know, Terrace Marshall or Johnny Wilson, some of the second string wide receivers. But the Eagles drafted Jahad Campbell in the first round, Ty Robinson in the 4th round, Smail Mondon in the 5th round, Antoine Powell Ryland in the 6th round. Andrew Bakuba is not going to play. Apparently, he's dealing with a shoulder injury, but would have been excited to see him as well. There's some talk that we could see Cooper DeJean, as the Eagles are experimenting with him at safety in their base packages. So could see some Cooper DeJean on defense. So the challenges for the Bengals are probably more from Philly's defense in this game than Philly's number 2s on offense. There's just such a step down from their 1s who are like all-stars across the board to the 2s on offense, where the defense, you're still going to see some guys, I think some guys that are going to make plays for Philly in the regular season out there on the field. So to me, that challenge for the rest of the offense, especially the offensive line for the Bengals, I mean, all eyes on Dylan Fairchild, right? All eyes on Lucas Patrick, right? All eyes on Amarius Mims and how big of a step he's taking in year 2, right?
Well, certainly Dylan Fairchild. I mean, that's the first thing that came to mind, is because I think we know Lucas Patrick is what he is. I think he's their best option at right guard right now that we are aware of. And I don't think they're just going to throw Jalen Rivers into the guard fire right away in a game. I would be stunned, and I think everyone would. So that's it, is how do these guys hold up? But specifically Dylan Fairchild, he needs the reps. I'm not sure Lucas Patrick does, but it's good to get him out there with that right side with Amarius, who, yeah, that's the wild card, where it really, not wild card in there's a low floor, because I don't think there is, but man, if he pops this year, if this is the year for Amarius, where it's the year 2 leap, that opens up a lot offensive line wise for you. And so is Dylan Fairchild ready? Is a big question for me. I'm intrigued by the non-big 3 at wide receiver. Obviously, Jamar, T, and Andre are locked in wide receivers 1 through 3. After that, Jermaine Burton, Isaiah Williams, Charlie Jones, and Mitch Tinsley. He prefers Mitch Tinsley. Those 4 have had impressive camps. Tinsley on the outside looking in, I would say, roster-wise. The other 3 probably either in Burton's case, or really pushing to be in Isaiah Williams' case. So what about those guys? How do they perform? Shocker, I'm paying attention to wide receiver, but I do think it matters. And then, are there any backup guards or backup offensive linemen in general? So Jalen Rivers in this mix for sure. Devin Cochran. that can have a good enough showing where you feel a little better and a little better about that unit and the depth there. Because they have a lot of dudes. Like there's a lot of guys, like actual bodies. But then you look and it's like, all right, well, is Cordell Volson your backup right guard? Well, what about when Cody Ford's nicked up? Or is it just going to be Cody Ford? Or is Cody Ford going to be? Or is it Devin Cochran? Or is it Jalen Rivers? There's just a lot of dudes, and they need to figure that out, and they need to separate themselves some. And so hopefully we start to see that on Thursday.
A lot of bodies. I would say bodies. Dudes
Yeah,
has a
bodies.
positive connotation to it. You know what I mean?
A lot of humans. There's a lot
Yeah.
of humans in that room.
Yeah. And they got to figure out which of those humans are dudes that belong on an NFL roster.
Are real dudes. Yeah.
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 We're going to watch Andrew Rain play center with the second team. Matt Lee, not going to play. Seth McLaughlin, obviously not going to play. Those guys haven't done any team drills yet, really, throughout camp. Matt Lee, maybe a few reps. Andrew Rain at center is not going to be very fun for you to watch, I don't think. But maybe he acquits himself nicely. The second team offensive line, the reason I bring it up is because the second team offensive line, like it might be a little bit ugly at times with some of the guys they're going to have on that unit.
Wow.
But I want to go back to the wide receivers.
Oh,
you pivoted to offensive line before I was
yeah.
ready. Yeah. Isaiah Williams needs to perform well in this game. He's had a great camp. Needs to show up in a game. Same for Charlie Jones. Same for Jermaine Burton. Those guys have all had good camps. Mm-hmm. Isaiah Williams certainly standing out among them. I think Jermaine Burton has to. Do it in a game. Translate to a game. Same for Mitch Tinsley. Show it in a game. Make an argument for a roster spot, Mitch Tinsley. Because who knows? Maybe they do go that way and keep 7 receivers. I don't think so. I haven't done the roster math in a while, but I think they're going to be hard-pressed to keep a 7th receiver, just looking at where they're going to want additional depth. But
you never know until you get there, until it's that time.
Exactly. You know? There could be injuries between now and then. But on the topic of the backup offensive line, which is where we went next, where does Jalen Rivers play? Does he play on both sides in this game?
Yeah.
I think he's going to play tackle. That's not what I'm asking as far as where will he play. But a lot of the, I guess, lowlights for Jalen Rivers that we've seen in the last couple of days, because early on, my initial impression of Jalen Rivers, he's holding up pretty good. It's mostly at left tackle. Amari Smith goes down. He starts playing right tackle with the ones. Things start going a little bit more poorly for him. Joe Goodberry pointed out in one of his videos recently, a clip that I hadn't seen. Jalen Rivers in the one-on-ones for the in-stadium practice, just the footwork looks clunky on the right side at right tackle. And he might just not be comfortable with the right side. So given that he had all that experience at left guard, left tackle in college, Joe pointed out as well, I didn't know this, Dallas says if you played left side, you're going to play left side. Maybe you're left tackle, left guard, but you're a left side player. The Bengals will move you around. So Jalen Rivers, how does he look on the right side if he plays both sides? Where do they start him? Do they start him on the left side? Which I think they will. But if he's not comfortable on the right side, who's the swing tackle? Because you need a tackle that can play both sides. Maybe that does eventually turn into Cody Ford's a right tackle off the bench and Jalen Rivers is a left tackle off the bench. We'll see how that plays out. But I think a big one for Jalen Rivers there, as far as where he plays, will tell us what the coaches are thinking about him. And then we haven't talked tight ends or running backs. Taj Brooks, exciting player. Go ahead.
I would play Jalen Rivers the whole game after the starters leave. The whole game.
I don't have a compelling reason not to. I do want to see what Caleb Etienne looks like, number 77.
Sure.
But
guess what?
Can be on the field at the same time.
Play him on both sides. Yeah. Play Jalen on both sides. Like, there's no reason not to. Desmond Ridder is going to play in the fourth quarter here, right? So it's like, get him reps.
Yeah.
Why not? What's it going to hurt? So he would be in the moment Amarius is out. It would be Jalen Rivers' time, and he would not leave the field at one of those tackle spots. Go ahead. Let's dive into the running backs.
Yeah, I mean, it's Taj Brooks, right?
Yeah.
And he's had a good camp. I'm excited to see him in a real situation, in a real game situation, because he's looked good to me. How does he look against real tackling, real competition? That's exciting. That's all I got for Taj Brooks. He's had a good camp. Let's see it translate to games. And then tight end, honestly, pretty fascinating. Tanner Hudson starting to step up in the absence of Mike Gesicki in the last couple of days at camp. Does Tanner McLaughlin make an impression? I misattributed a block to Tanner Hudson during that stadium practice. Was actually Tanner McLaughlin on the Eric All style block. So Is his blocking taking a step? Does he make an outside argument to crawl into this roster? I mean, it's a crowded tight end room all of a sudden when you add Noah Fant into the mix. So some guys really battling there in that tight end room to show they belong on the roster.
Yeah. It's what you want. You want competition there. And I don't know. I think Tanner McLaughlin faces a really high
I agree.
climb. I don't know the path, but you never know. And so, yeah, if he can put some good tape out there, that would be a step forward. And I know there are people that believe in him from a fan standpoint, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So
And there's a path to the practice squad there. Last thing, long snappers. Who's snapping when? What situations do we see for long snappers? Get to pick that apart. I don't know how much we're going to be talking about that tomorrow night, unless there are like 6 field goals kicked. But that is something that bears
unless there's a
watching
miss.
for those of you that are, and if there's a miss, if there's like a clearly bad operation at some point, a bad snap, something to keep an eye out for. I think that's it. Also, returner rotations, somewhat interesting, but I don't know how much we can take away from that. But watching specialists does give you an idea of, some of those fringe roster battles. So if you're really into that, you really want to know who like 52 and 53 on the roster are going to be, keep an eye on who's out on the field for those special teams battles. That's always some evergreen advice there for those of you that like to nerd out in the preseason. But we'll be back tomorrow after the game, Thursday night football. Until then, thanks for listening to this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. Hoo day, and have a good one.